Hey guys, welcome back to James for Justice and the Master Lawyer Academy, where we talk about all things related to both criminal defense work and criminal justice reform. Today is the holiday of Dr. Martin Luther King, 2022, and there's lots of people talking about his life, his legacy, how we can remember those things and bring them into our present day. And as a criminal defense attorney, I want to just give you a few thoughts to think about yourself and how you can implement something that he stood for in your professional work today. When I think about Dr. King, one of the things that stands out among many, but one thing is that he had a mission in his life and in his profession. He had a mission focus. He had something he wanted to accomplish that went way beyond, that was so much bigger than just a job or a profession or a career. He had a mission to bring about racial equality in the United States and in the world. And he fought so hard for that. And he brought other people to line up with him to fight for that cause because he had this sort of magnetism. And the power of his words was reflective of the fact that he had a mission. He didn't just go to work from 9 to 5 to check in and check out at the end of the day. He didn't go just to perform the ministerial tasks that he had as a pastor. He didn't go in just to do what he thought other people expected him to do. Those are all things that we can easily fall into, these traps of life, especially if we let ourselves go on autopilot. But Dr. King had a mission to bring about racial equality at a time in our country's history where there was very little of that, and it was a battle. And he talked about climbing the mountain, and that mountain, I think, referred in part to this mission he had where if he could climb the mountain, this difficult journey of trying to bring about racial equality for black and brown and white and yellow Americans, then he would be accomplishing his mission. And the thing about a mission, and when you hear Dr. King's words, you can hear this and you can almost see it, is that having a mission requires you bring your heart and your soul into your work. It's not just a job, even for us lawyers, a technical job where we use our brain power to perform and do what we need to do. If you have a mission in your life, then you will bring your heart and soul into your job, into your profession. And as criminal defense attorneys, I believe that if more of us had a mission in our practices, whether it be to bring about racial equality in the legal system, or whether it be to end the death penalty, or whether it be to help make bail reform so that more people can be out on bail even though they don't have the financial resources. Whatever your mission may be, there's no shortage of needs in the criminal justice system to help it work better, more fairly, with better equality, with more justice towards people. And many attorneys over the years have had missions, and I think that has, in the legal system, and that has set them apart from other attorneys who are just going to their law practice or their office or the courtroom as another job. If we think about some of the past attorneys who have helped make our country what it is today, we can think about them and their mission. Because if they became well known out of the results of what they did because they had a mission-based focus in their practice or in their life, then they stood out in their career. They became shining lights for the rest of us as examples of people who had a mission in the legal system. I think of one of my favorite attorneys, John Adams, one of the founding fathers of our country, who as a lawyer, I think in many ways his mission was to bring real integrity to the legal structure of this new country that was being birthed back in 1776. And when you read some of his work, not only was he an impassioned attorney, and he was a defense attorney representing the British soldiers in the Boston Massacre. That was one example of what I think he wanted to accomplish, which was integrity in the legal system so that it could be a barrier against political forces. And for him to take the stand that he did as a defense attorney for the English soldiers who shot and killed several of the local colonists, you have to imagine he could have easily been tarred and feathered along with the other English sympathizers in Boston, which really wanted to spark revolt against the British crown. But John Adams understood a more profound principle of law and order, being integrity within the legal system protects against the politicization from either camp or any and all camps, so that the legal structure of our country would be solid. And upon that, we could build a society that allowed for freedom and equality. I also think of somebody like Johnny Cochran, who we all know well, stories about the O.J. Simpson trial. When I did a little reading about Johnny Cochran, I discovered that he also had a mission to bring about racial equality and justice to both black and brown Americans in the legal system. And what I didn't know was that he had actually gone back and forth between being both a criminal defense attorney and also a district attorney, prosecutor, I think a couple of different times. And his mission to bring about racial equality, he thought at times that could be done better as a prosecutor, and then it shifted. He thought it could be done better as a defense attorney. And from what I've read, he did that a couple of times in his own efforts to really focus on the mission, not just on a particular career path. He was focused on the mission of racial equality and justice, and that came out in various ways in his professional work. And I think he has done a great job of giving us a legacy also as lawyers, and especially defense attorneys, of someone who fought for something much bigger than just a big payday or a not guilty verdict. So as you go through the rest of your day for this Martin Luther King Jr. Day, the time we observe his memory, his legacy, I think it's helpful to think about missionizing your defense practice, missionizing your work as an attorney, so that you can really take your practice to much higher levels than you could ever do it if you're just going to a job or profession or checking in, even if you want to be the best attorney at your law firm. If you have a mission to accomplish something much bigger than your job or your career, then I think you're going to take your practice to much higher levels, and it's going to bring so much more fulfillment to you, because as soon as you bring your heart and soul into your work and you integrate your heart and soul and mind into what you're doing every day as an attorney, then you are going to have a tremendous amount of power and energy, inspiration, enthusiasm, all of these things that help us do our work better, not just more effectively in the mental sense that we can concentrate and we can remember the court rules and statutes and case law, but that really give us motivation to go beyond whatever the challenges of each and every day are, or whatever the challenges may be from prosecutors or district attorneys that we're fighting it out in court with. If we have a mission to accomplish, and that includes accomplishing that with and for our clients, then our work is going to be much more powerful and achieve much greater results than we ever thought possible. I'll give you just one final example of missionizing your practice, which actually helped me probably 12 years ago when I went out in my own practice. I left a firm where I was a partner doing really well, but decided to open my own law firm. I decided, with the help of some other people that I was actually talking to missionize my practice by focusing almost entirely on protecting the rights of cannabis users. And at that time in my state, in Michigan, we had just passed a law allowing for medical marijuana use, possession, grow, so on and so forth. And there were very few attorneys who had specialized in this field. And so I thought, okay, why don't I get into this? I wasn't a marijuana user. I wasn't a smoker. But I did understand that there were a lot of people who had really good medical reasons for using cannabis, which, being the son of a pharmacist, when I was a child growing up in my father's business, he ran a pharmacy, and I helped probably for 10, 12 years there as a kid. I could see the kinds of issues related to prescription drugs, synthetic, compound, chemical drugs that pharmacies dispensed. And this isn't me disparaging pharmaceuticals, it's just saying there were plenty of issues with people that were using physician-prescribed pharmaceutical drugs. And when I thought about cannabis as a natural, organic type of drug, that now, at the time, 12 years ago when I started my own practice, had the stamp of approval from the state that it was now legal for people to possess and use for medicinal purposes, I thought that'd be a great way to grow my practice. And lo and behold, it really turned out to be a fantastic way to get out in front of what now is a huge industry in the legal community in my state and so many other states, where people are really involved in the cannabis businesses and protecting individual rights of cannabis users. That for me to be out in the forefront, probably one of the first 5 or so attorneys who had really specialized in cannabis law, it bumped my practice way up in terms of not only the expertise that I had, but also the financial resources that I was able to accumulate by serving people who had these needs all across the state. And I was even getting calls from people in the state department that were regulating this, asking me questions about the fairly new cannabis law at the time. So it gave me a greater sense of purpose, and it wasn't just to build my practice to make more money, but when I started to understand what the struggles were of medical marijuana users at the early phase of that law in my state, especially when police were still operating out of the mentality that they had long had, which was that marijuana is illegal unless you fall in this very tight category that they looked at very narrowly. And so what happened was a lot of innocent medical marijuana users got caught up or swept up by law enforcement in very unjust ways that not only cost them a lot of money to deal with, but also the stress and strain of being charged with felonies and possible incarceration. When at the end of the day, this was all about the confusion that this new set of laws created between law enforcement and the court system, prosecutors, individual users. So as a defense attorney, I made it my mission to go in order to protect individual legal rights of medical marijuana users by fighting for clarity in the law and fighting for the individual rights of my clients who had real medical needs. And we're talking about people often who are in their 50s or 60s who had bad car accidents and had plates in their leg or surgeries on their back, and they had chronic pain that were getting some relief from this. These weren't people out trying to deal drugs to minors. But the law enforcement at the time these laws were passed was still coming down hard on people who had marijuana. And so it gave me this new understanding of how important it is to missionize your law practice. When you can not only specialize in something, because we all talk about specializing in an area of the law helps you really stand out as an attorney and become more recognized, get more business, but also make a difference in the law. But missionizing your law practice involves bringing your heart, your soul, your mind together in order to not only be the expert in a particular field, but to do it in a way that you really are serving your clients much more deeply and profoundly, because you're involved in this mission of making the legal system work better in one way or another. And when you do that, and it continues to serve your clients even better than just checking in the day to do your job, then you're going to feel so much better about your work, because you'll be more integrated with what you do on a daily basis, and you will have a greater purpose. And when that purpose is a bigger than life type of mission, which so many of us can really think about, especially with criminal justice reform. There are so many things that need to be reformed in the criminal justice system today, that if you missionize your work, if you missionize your law practice, and you're going to go to totally new levels, it's going to be a lot more exciting. You're going to have so much more passion for your work, and you're going to do that much of a greater job because you're going to be so invested in fulfilling your mission. And so I just want to give you those thoughts to think about, whether you're in criminal defense work or you're somehow involved in criminal justice reform. There are so many ways that we can work together to bring about a better legal system. And I think by missionizing your practice, your work, your activism, you're going to do that in much better ways, and you're going to feel so much better about it. So go and missionize your practice. Let's keep fighting for justice.